For this problem, we are kind of looking at the same type of problem we just saw in the previous problem here. What we need to do is be able to sum up all of these elements in the array called nums, and in order to find the average. However, we want to exclude two elements, two values, which would be the maximum and the minimum. In order to exclude those two values, however, we need to find them. And if you go down to big diff, this right here will find the minimum and the maximum. So you should be able to use that code for this problem. So the idea there is that you don't need to prove to yourself that you can find the maximum and the minimum element inside an array. This code will go ahead and do that for you. What this code is doing, just to remind you, is it's visiting every single element inside this array called nums and figuring out whether this current element that we're looking at is or should be considered to be the maximum or the minimum. Anyway, after that for loop, of course, we should have found the maximum and the minimum. At the same time, we need to be able to sum up the numbers. And so since we are visiting every single element in here anyway, what we're going to do is, as we visit them, let's go ahead and accumulate all these numbers in this variable called sum. Alright, so at the end of this for loop, what we know is that we have this variable called sum. Sum contains the addition of all the elements in there. However, we do want to remove two values. So we want to update sum by removing the two values that we don't care to consider in our average, which is the maximum and the minimum. So from here, of course, if you want to calculate the average, we want to take our sum and divide it by the number of elements. So remember that we removed two elements from this calculation. Therefore, the number of elements that we should consider in this average is nums.length minus 2. And of course, from there, we're just going to return our calculated average. And there you have it. It should run just fine. Just to summarize, what we need to do is be able to find the maximum and minimum number within this array called nums. This code right here will take care of finding those two values. At the same time, what we need to do is sum up all of the numbers in this array called nums, and that's what this line of code is doing. Remember, the for loop here is setting up our traversal, which is our visit to every single element. Outside of that, we have to go ahead and remove the two elements that we do not care to have for our centered average, which is the maximum and the minimum numbers. From there, in order to calculate the average, we divide by the number of elements. The number of elements is going to be 2 less than the original number of elements within this array called nums. Remember, we took away two values, the maximum and the minimum. Okay.